All right, so today's topic is a better way to train jiu-jitsu. So real quick before we get into this, I want to give a quick shout out to Pale Green Co. They've sponsored this video and they make these super sweet little jiu-jitsu belt drawstrings for your hoodies. So they got every color, white through black, including kids. So if you're interested, link is in the description, Pale Green Co. Okay, so back to today's topic. So as I discussed previously in my last video, one thing I've noticed primarily almost everybody, the way they train jiu-jitsu as far as like competitors go, and then most other people in between as well, but especially competitors, the goal is by far is to be the fastest, the most explosive, the most athletic, jumping around, beating people in that way. I don't see that much focus on strength. You start to see it a little bit with the big guys, but the trend is actually going the opposite. It used to be the smaller you are, the more athletic, the more dynamic movement you do, but it's moving up and up and up and up, and we're getting like these better athletes at heavier weight classes. So we just had the 2025 Euros, and at the higher weight classes, every guy went in there was super athletic, super dynamic. And this is not the best way to train for most people, and that's for many, many reasons. So the biggest number one reason is, especially I'm talking for someone who wants to be a competitor, someone who wants to be competitive at a world-class level. If you're not in that top tiny percentage of the super athletic people at whatever your weight class is, then trying to do this, you're always going to lose to the guy who's the more natural athlete. And by athlete, I'm talking more, again, about the dynamic, explosive, that type of fast twitch, jumping around, moving, dynamic movement, side to side, things like that. You're going to always lose to that guy who is that type of a natural athlete. And most people by far are not going to be that type of athlete. So if you are that type of athlete, obviously that's the way you should train. But by far, most people are not that athlete. But they still try to mimic the super athletes when they train. They try to go harder. Like that's a big thing I say a lot is when talking about different types of academies or gyms, there's like the more thoughtful, like more like technical type of gyms, or there's the go harder gym. If it's not working, do it harder, do it faster, do it more times, like that. That's their answer, is like do it more, do the same thing more. Whereas more of a technical academy is they're gonna take that information in, learn new technique, learn workarounds to that technique, and learn a new way to get there, going around it instead of going through it. And so with the super fast athletic style of training, if you're not that guy, it's just not in your genes, then no amount of going harder or trying harder or putting more hours in at the gym of doing the same exact thing is going to allow you to beat the person who is naturally going to be better at that style. So what I'm talking about is a more slower, pressury, grinding, a more isometric type of training. As I already mentioned, there's many, many reasons why this is definitely the better way to train for almost everybody. And you can make the argument for everybody, but like I said, if you are that tiny 1% or less of people who are the super athletes, then by all means, that's the way you should be trying to win from a competitive point of view. A big star in jiu-jitsu right now is Cole at AOJ. Just got his black belt. He's doing well at black belt already. Not a surprise. But if you watch this guy, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything about his work ethic. He obviously trains super hard, works super hard. He's constantly doing everything correctly. I've watched a lot of the footage on him and a lot of his interviews and things like that. He's a professional athlete for sure. But he's also that small percentage of guys who is super athletic and dynamic. So I guarantee you there's other people out there working just as hard as him, doing very similar stuff to him, and they will never beat him. We don't know their names because they're not winning, because that's not their style. Now let's say someone else who is working that hard on and off the mats every day in life, doing all the things they need to be doing, that's not quite winning at the top level yet. Of course, you can get pretty far by doing that wrong style, or the wrong style for your body, if you're doing everything right, because it's just such a small amount of people that are willing to put in that type of work to achieve the goals of like being a world champ. But that same person that I was just talking about, who we don't know them because they're not winning the top stuff, if they had spent all that time training where they're trying to train like a Cole, being athletic, being dynamic, being explosive, that type of training, if they had focused on a different type of training and a different type of jiu-jitsu, then we probably would see them. We probably would know their name. I'm not saying they'll beat Cole every single time they fight, but it would be a rivalry. They would win some of the times. They could win a black belt world championship. They could be at the top. They could be a famous name that everyone knows. So when someone like Cole's in the gym and he's jumping around, he's doing box jumps and all these like side to side lateral jumps, all this super athletic type of training, someone who's trying to implement this other style of training, you're going to train more like isometrically. You're trying to build up strength. You're trying to be pound for pound stronger. You will get a different type of cardio. Obviously, you can't neglect all the other stuff if you want to be at the top, but it would pay much higher dividends to train more like this. And a big thing I'm getting into right now is the overcoming isometrics. So imagine you have to fight someone like a Cole. I'm using Cole because he's just one of the most athletically gifted people out there right now, that everyone knows who he is. But imagine you had to go grapple him. Now imagine you're trying to keep up with him and be explosive, and when he gets something on you, you try to react just as fast and explosive. You try to jump around, you try to move, and you're not that guy. You're not that genetic guy. Of course, you're going to start to fall behind. He's going to start pulling further and further ahead, and he's going to beat you. Now imagine you trained this more isometric, slow, strong, on and off the mats. Your goal wouldn't be to go out there and match his pace. You're going to have to burn a little more energy than you want in the beginning, because it's like in MMA, it's an example of like grappler versus striker. You always have to start on the feet. So in jiu-jitsu, you always got to start without a grip. Once you make a grip, life becomes a million times easier. So you go out there and your goal is to stay safe. So it's a lot easier and less energy to stay safe than it is to attack and win. And I think everybody knows this if you've been training for a little while. If you're rolling with somebody and their only goal is to not let you tap them, it's pretty hard to tap them. Even if you're much, much better, if they just kind of turtle up and all their goal is to not get tapped, then either you can't tap them or you're going to have to do some really dirty, mean things to get the tap that most people aren't willing to do in the gym, and you shouldn't do in the gym. I agree with that. Take that as an example. One of the things you would do for this type of training is grip training. You want to have a very strong isometric grip. When you make a grip, you want it to last for a long time. So you go out there and you make one grip. You get a grip on Cole. I'm not saying this is going to be easy. You might even start down a couple of points, but eventually you're not going to go a whole round and get tapped out, more than likely, if you're like world-class level, without making a single grip. And then once you make a grip, then your game starts. It's so much easier to slow someone down once you get a hold of them, hold them down. A super fast, dynamic person, when you make a grip on them and stop them from jumping around and moving so much, the amount of anxiety and everything that goes with not being in your position versus getting your position, it drops like 90% for me personally. An example I use all the time is I play a lot of open guard, and I'm a slow mover. I've been training this way for a long time now. I'm 40 now. I have to train like every day basically. I own my own academy, and I like to train every day. I don't want to go out there and kill myself and have to take 2 or 3 days off because I try to keep up with some 22-year-old brown belt or something like that. I'll start on the bottom, open guard, and I put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into open guard so that I can conserve all that energy of trying to get a grip on somebody and trying to get the fight started into my spot. And I can tell you, even with all these hours and how much practice I have and how good I am at doing this, the moment I go from completely open guard on my back, my knees tucked in, my hands are on my shins waiting to find a grip somewhere, the way that feels versus the moment I get a sleeve grip when they reach in, or even better, they step in and I get an ankle grip like the start of a De La Hiva, the anxiety goes down like 95%. Then you know where they are. Once you make a grip, your subconscious, your body will take over and you'll start getting to your spots. It's so much easier to roll and save your energy once you get a grip. And so we have to have a super strong grip. And this is the things we'll focus on while training in the gym on the mats while rolling, and outside of the gym off the mats. So this would be the scariest, hardest part of the match. And once you get a grip, everything changes and it gets a lot better. And I'm not saying someone like me, I could get a hold of Cole and hold him down and then he's not going to beat me. No, we're two completely different levels. He's a world-class, young, super stud, super athlete at the highest level. But if you take someone who is at his level, who's been trained in this way, they will have the ability to do that. Again, not 100%. It's not like guaranteed, bam, I made a grip on Cole, this world-class guy is going to beat Cole. But he's going to be in the fight for sure, and his odds of winning have dramatically gone up. And again, black belt adult 10-minute match, the thought of not being able to make a single grip and work your way to good spots at some point within that 10 minutes is very unlikely. The same thing with like a knockout artist would look at it that way too, is you may be faster or better, but I only need to land one shot. It's kind of like that. You get that one grip and the fight completely changes. Kind of like that, a little bit different. But so another way I compare that too is if you do striking. If someone has good head movement and you're throwing punches trying to find their head and they're moving, you can't hit them. But street fight scenario, you reach out and you grab the back of someone's head, then no matter where your hand moves, your mind, your body will put it all together as you're moving your fist, and you will find the back of your hand. So you will punch them in the face just because you found where they were at in space and time. You got a hold of them. So it's kind of like that with getting to a guard. If you're wide open or you make a grip and you try to jump and pull a pretty dynamic guard on someone like Cole, he's going to fly through the air and pass your guard. And again, this will never be an easy task, but if this is the way you've trained, you will be able to get there if you always train this style of training of get a grip and find your way to a guard, a safe guard, find your way to your back, knees tucked to your chest. And that type of person, they have the advantage in the beginning. It's just built into it. It's the way it is. But the downside is if they can't finish you fast, then it starts to switch. The chances of winning are going to get better and better for the other style. No matter how much you train, it takes a big toll on your body when you're being super fast and dynamic, explosive like that. And on top of that, this style of training that I'm speaking of will tax that person more. You put those grips on them, you hold them, you make everything harder. And it really switches if you get on top. Watch Gordon Ryan. He's the best in the world at this. And the best ever at this style, I would say, is Roger Gracie. He played a very similar style to what I'm speaking about. But on top, you're conserving tons of energy, but you've put yourself in a spot where you can cook your opponent. So you're getting heavy. You're weighing on them. They are wearing out at, let's make up an imaginary way to track it. They're at a 10 and you're at like a 2. So you're going to wear them out over time. It's going to pay dividends farther and farther the longer the match goes. The last point I want to hit on this video with this style of training is the overcoming isometric stuff I'm speaking about. Just a real quick example is you get under a bar with 2,000 pounds on it and you can't move it, but you give full force for like 8 to 12 seconds trying to squat this bar that's 2,000 pounds that you can't move. So it's putting 100% work or force effort into a movement that's immovable. And so this creates a different type of strength, a different type of cardio with your strength. It's called overcoming isometrics. And let's say you're this type of athlete and you've been working on this type of strength. You're fighting the super dynamic guy, and let's say you get a hold of him, you wrap him up. Leg locks are super popular in jiu-jitsu right now, especially no-gi. And it's a huge advantage for someone playing the game that I'm speaking about right now. If you can just latch onto a foot and you've trained these positions for a long time and you're really good at them, you will find a way to wrap your legs up, tie them up, slow them down, and get them stuck. And then a lot of this becomes more about knowledge. So whoever's more knowledgeable in the position, way less about the athletics. And let's say you've worked all these positions and you're extremely strong. You worked on this overcoming isometrics, and now you grab a hold of their ankle. So you crank on the ankle, and most guys at this high level, they're not going to tap whether you get them or not. They're going to let stuff pop, and they'll take the pain, especially if they're up on points and the fight's coming close to the end. they're going to let it go, and whatever happens, happens. But if you've trained this type of skill set, you can literally break the bone. You can snap the shin, and I don't care who you are. If there's 30 seconds left, if you break their shin, you win that fight. They're going to scream and cry. The ref's going to call it. It's going to be over. It's not going to be like, someone might bring up the Roger versus Jacare match, but that was an elbow joint that he popped, and I don't know the specifics if he actually broke his arm, but it wasn't like he broke it through the forearm and you could just see it dangling and it broke right there. I'm pretty sure he didn't break the actual arm. It was a joint lock. So what I'm talking about is maybe your ankle lock isn't on the ankle correctly and you just snap their shin, or they're doing just enough, an inch, to keep their foot out, keep their knee from getting blown out, and you break it. You break the leg, you break the bone, and this is overcoming isometrics where you get this type of power. Some people might not like that idea or think it's like unsportsmanlike or something like that, but it's called tapping. It's a sport. It's the highest level. If you get caught and you don't know how to get out and you feel like your leg is going to break, it's on you to tap at the highest level. It's on you if you want to let it break or take the chance of letting it break. And I would say if you let it break, unless it's super close to the end and you're about to be a black belt world champ and there's just not enough time, I don't know, I would say it's stupid, because it's going to hurt you and hold you back way more in the long run than just tapping that one day and figuring it out in the academy afterwards and getting back to training and try to figure out how to beat that position. That's good enough for this video. I don't want to keep them too long. I want to keep people interested in this, but a lot more to say about this. But don't forget, Pale Green Co. Link is in the description. If you're interested in any jiu-jitsu based clothing, the little jiu-jitsu drawstring for a hoodie. And please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let's get this conversation going. I think it's very important. I think this can help a lot of people. Most people they're just training the wrong way.